The 15th hour hasn't stopped the looting and riots in California. How the fight against illegal immigration has led to a split in the United States. And white tanks and outcasts are coming to Washington. In Mordovia, companies linked to the former head of the region are suspected of polluting rivers in 2 different republics at once, and of initiating an important humanitarian mission that finally made progress today. A few hours ago, Moscow and Kiev carried out their first exchange of fallen soldiers' bodies under the Istanbul agreements. Russia was ready to hand over the fallen Ukrainian soldiers as early as last week, but Ukraine sabotaged the process. It seems that now Zelensky is being pressured by his Western handlers. Alexandra Mostovea will continue.
For 4 days, refrigerated trucks with the bodies of the fallen Ukrainian soldiers stood at the border. But Kiev only agreed to take back their soldiers today. That's 1,212 fighters. In exchange, the Ukrainian side handed over 27 bodies of fallen soldiers to Russia.
The transfer of the bodies of fallen soldiers has begun in accordance with the Istanbul agreements. We handed over 1,212 bodies of Ukrainian soldiers to the Ukrainian side. We received back 27 fallen Russian servicemen. Now they can be laid to rest according to Christian traditions. The work has continued all these days. Tomorrow we will begin urgent and medical exchanges of severely wounded prisoners. Russia does not abandon its own.
These shots show what the wait was like for Ukrainian families. Dozens of weeping wives and mothers crowded near the Belarusian border the day before, holding portraits of their missing husbands, fathers, and sons. In the chorus of women's voices, the words Kursk and course direction are heard most often. It was there that Ukraine suffered its most devastating losses. A person disappeared in the Polish direction.
My husband went missing in the Kursk direction, somewhere around the Olgievsky forest, Flint. We've been waiting for 8 months already. With each passing day, this pain becomes more unbearable. I really want to hear at least some news, because since he disappeared, unfortunately, there has been no information at all.
Ukrainian women searched for their loved ones among the prisoners whom Russia returned this week and demanded the return of the dead.
We still hope for a miracle, that he will come back, that we will find him.
This is my husband. He fought from the very beginning. But when he was sent to Kursk, unfortunately, he didn't last long there. He went missing on December 29.
At the negotiations in Istanbul, Russia offered to return the bodies of 6,000 dead Ukrainian armed forces fighters without any conditions. The exchange was supposed to start last week, but Zelensky at first tried to completely ignore the men who, by Kiev's order, went to their deaths. According to calculations by the Russian Ministry of Defense, the number of killed and wounded Ukrainian soldiers has exceeded 1 million. Kiev keeps quiet about its losses, but an exchange of 1,212 for 27 shows who is really losing on the battlefield.
We are not commenting on the numbers right now, and that's very important. I would like to emphasize separately that until the exchange is completed, it's important not to mention specific numbers. If you are acting in the interests of Ukraine and care about our defenders, do not comment on the numbers until all stages of the exchange are completed.
For the Zelensky regime, it's easier to count their dead soldiers as missing in action so they don't have to pay compensation to their families. For 6,000 killed, they would have to pay families about $1.5 billion.
Everything costs money, including funerals. And these expenses should be covered by the state budget, but they prefer to keep the money for themselves rather than bury the dead. That's the current Ukrainian mentality.
Kiev delayed the exchange, despite the Istanbul agreements. But when foreign journalists started writing about it en masse, the Zelensky regime was forced to take back the dead, although not all of them yet. Tomorrow and in the following days, the exchange will continue. Repatriation trains with another batch of bodies have already arrived at the border. Alexandra Mostovea, Igor Shigarev, and Yana Ostakova, Izvestia, reporting exclusively for REN TV.
Meanwhile, Ukrainian losses continue to grow with each day of the special operation. In the past 24 hours, our military has eliminated more than 1,300 Ukrainian armed forces soldiers. A third of them were in the area of responsibility of the Central Group. There, the Russian army has reached the western border of the DPR and is advancing in the Dnipropetrovsk region. Thus, the advance in Dnipropetrovsk is now coming from 3 directions. At the same time, the buffer zone is expanding in the Sumy region as well, with just over 15 kilometers remaining to the regional administrative center. There, the assault groups are actively supported by aviation and artillery. But this enemy grad on the Kherson section of the front wasn't so lucky. After it was spotted, the Russian Lancet took out the enemy combat vehicle. The loitering munition hit its target precisely, causing the ammunition to detonate. There have also been hits in the Ukrainian rear. In this footage, you can see the destruction of the enemy's electronic intelligence and UAV command post in the Chernihiv region. The first strike was carried out by an Iskander, and the job was finished by a Garand drone. Priests of the canonical Orthodox Church in Ukraine have been stripped of their exemption from mobilization and can now be sent to die on the front lines. The clergy themselves have already called this decision by Kyiv a form of blackmail. The thing is, representatives of all other churches have kept their exemption, including members of the schismatic OCU, who also won't be drafted into the army. In other words, clergy will now be forced, under threat of death, to switch to the OCU's authority in order to save their own lives. Essentially, this is yet another stage in the war against orthodoxy that has unfolded across all of Ukraine. In Los Angeles, the protests have reached a new level. Instead of stones and firecrackers, demonstrators are now attacking the police with firearms. The city first declared a state of emergency, then imposed a curfew. The local press has already calculated that there are now more U.S. military personnel there than in Iraq and Syria combined. The California governor accused the president of using the armed forces against civilians, demanded that it stop, but the court has already rejected his appeal. And now, California Governor Gavin Newsom is basically going head-to-head with Trump. The president is currently preparing to hold a military parade.
We all know this Saturday, he is ordering our American heroes.
We all know that this Saturday, Trump gave the order to our American heroes, the U.S. military, forcing them to put on a vulgar show to celebrate his birthday, just like other failed dictators have done in the past.
Trump responded by saying that if Washington hadn't sent in the troops, Los Angeles would have completely burned down. After that, he went to visit the military at Fort Bragg in North Carolina and even performed his famous dance there, showing that the army is on his side. Today, Moscow directed German lawmakers to specific locations where they can obtain documentary evidence of crimes committed by the Kyiv regime, both about Nazism and about the terrorist acts carried out by the current Ukrainian authorities. The facts and evidence have been meticulously collected. The thing is, just recently, the Speaker of the Bundestag categorically stated that there is no Nazism in Ukraine. And what's more, Germany's top leadership pretends not to understand who exactly defeated their Nazism led by Hitler during World War II. Leonid Ketriel will remind us.
Julia Klockner, the president of the German parliament, proudly issues a statement to her press office. The Bundestag cannot be intimidated. This is a public letter addressed to my Russian colleague Vyacheslav Volodin.
The German Bundestag knows that it was specifically the armed forces of the United States, France, the Commonwealth countries, and the then Soviet army, including many Ukrainian soldiers, who liberated Germany from the Nazi regime.
It all started with the German chancellor's attempt to flatter Donald Trump in a rather peculiar way. Murr stated in Washington, it was the Normandy landings that brought the war to an end.
Allow me to remind you that tomorrow is June 6th. This is the anniversary of D-Day, when the Americans once ended the war in Europe.
That wasn't the most pleasant day for you, was it?
Ultimately, Mr. President, it was the liberation of my country from the Nazi dictatorship. And we know what we owe you.
Of course. Merce didn't say a single word about the Red Army. Julia Klockner was even afraid to call things by their proper names, referring to the liberating army as the then Soviet one. But she did mention France, which, in fact, surrendered after just a month and a half of fighting.
The Germans praising the French is actually pretty funny, especially when you remember history. Even the Nazis who were signing the surrender, when they saw the French, said, "What, these guys? They beat us too." So apparently this is a part of history they no longer teach in German schools.
In her letter to her Russian counterpart, Klockner, for some reason, specifically pointed out that the Soviet army included Ukrainians, while forgetting about Belarusians, Kazakhs, Armenians, Azerbaijanis, Kyrgyz, and dozens of other nationalities. However, Downplaying the Soviet and Russian contributions to the victory over Nazism has been a long-standing and deliberate practice.
More and more, especially among the younger generation of Germans, they think that it was the Americans, that the Normandy landings, that this was the turning point in the war. And not, in fact, the Battle of Stalingrad, the Battle of Kursk, or the Siege of Leningrad.
The result was most evident during the anniversary celebration of the liberation of Auschwitz, where the German chancellor, at that time still Scholz, was invited, and he walked among the ovens, where Germans burned thousands of people with a smile on his face. To be continued, Russia, as the successor to the USSR, which liberated Auschwitz, was not invited to the celebration. However, even today, Germany has no intention of condemning the obvious crimes of the Kiev regime, which is, in the literal sense, neo-Nazi. Even though Klockner personally received a letter with a link to the State Duma website, where hundreds of such crimes are documented.
A drone attack on 2 passenger buses, 7 civilians were injured. A drone strike on residential buildings. An 8-year-old boy was hospitalized in moderate condition. As a result of a massive attack, 5 civilians were killed.
This is just a tiny part of a huge list that Klockner, like the entire Bundestag, will simply turn a blind eye to. However, when it comes to remembering exactly who liberated Germany and ended the war in Europe, German politicians can do that very easily. All they have to do is step out of the meeting hall and read what's written on the wall. On the day of victory over fascism, we send our fighting salute to all the warriors of the valiant Red Army. This inscription, like hundreds of others, is still visible on the wall of the former Reichstag. But there is no inscription in English there. Leonid Kittrell, Jana Dubanina, Anastasia Litvinchuk, Izvestia, reporting especially for REN TV.
Incorruptible witnesses of an era able to vividly show the course of history have been gathered in Moscow for a unique clock exhibition. They have been collected from the leading museums of the capital. The exhibition, Time Waits for No One, opens at VDNH and showcases the evolution of timekeeping from hourglasses and sundials to electronic and quartz clocks. You can see how these incredibly complex mechanisms work.
This is an ordinary one. These clocks are unique to this day. They were made for the coronation of Nicholas II, and their uniqueness lies in the fact that on a single winding, they can run for 600 days and display, like a chronometer, the seasons, lunar cycles, time, and dates.
A special part of the exhibition features pocket watches that belong to heads of state, revolutionaries, politicians, and scientists. For example, there is Stalin's watch. A major scandal is now unfolding in Mordovia, where companies associated with the former head of the republic, Nikolai Merkashin, are suspected of polluting the environment. According to local residents, factories owned by relatives of the former official are dumping tons of untreated waste into the rivers, causing mass fish die-offs. Moreover, numerous inspections have already confirmed these violations, but the management continues to deny everything. Reporting from Mordovia, Ivan Letomin.
Bayo Village, Republic of Mordovia. An employee of the Obertensky meat processing plant lunges at our film crew tried to damage our equipment. We're looking for the director of the company. Here is the office of the general director. There's no one here. We had questions for the management after local residents reached out to our editorial office. Naim Nugav lives next door with his children and grandchildren. He says the meat processing plant dumps its waste directly into the Insar River.
They slaughter. How can I explain it? Animals, and all the crap just flows right into the river.
That very pipe coming from the meat plant's property. The smell here is just unbearable. And right next to it is the slaughterhouse. And apparently, the amount of waste dumped here every day is just enormous. From there, it flows into this stream. This stream flows into the Insar River. And judging by the color of the waste and the animal remains, there's clearly no filtration happening here at all. We reported the violations to the police and sent inquiries to the local Rosberg Nadzor and the Ministry of Forestry. By the way, the latter are currently at the peak of their inspection activities. Inspectors are going out to the rivers and taking water samples. The village of Romodinovo, there's a huge sugar factory here. Together with specialists from the Mobile Chemical Laboratory, we're back at the Insar River. Here it is, the very same Romanov sugar factory. And here's the Insar River. It's about 700 meters away in direct view. The area is swampy, with a distinct, pungent smell. Over there, just past the bushes, there's a pipe. It was right here, at this very spot, that Rosberg-Nadzer recorded the dumping of household waste in mid-May. And again, judging by the smell, there's no filtration here either. We also asked the director of the sugar factory, Alexander Atlasov, questions about environmental pollution, but the manager ran away from our film crew without answering them. It was at this pipe that Rosberg-Nadzer made its official report and took samples. Hey, why are you hitting me with the door? Are you out of your mind? Are you going to answer my question? A whole range of violations has been recorded across the Republic by Rosberg-Nadzer and the Ministry of Forestry. The Abrochin meat processing plant dumps its waste in the fields, Romo de Novo sugar dumps into the Insar River, and the Ichalki cheese factory dumps waste into Tatar Vilimli and Insar. And these are just the cases recorded in the past month.
This is an unscheduled inspection due to a potential violation of mandatory environmental protection regulations. They test the water for one of the main indicators that we specify in the application for sample collection: sulfates, oxygen, iron, oil and petroleum products, and other indicators.
We weren't able to speak with the directors of the enterprises, but we found out that all these assets, in one way or another, belong to a single family, the family of former Samara Region Governor Nikolai Merkushkin. According to data from the Spark database, the owners and ultimate beneficiaries of both the Abrochin meat processing plant, Romo de Novo sugar, Eichelkovsky cheese factory, and Kimliansky distillery are directly or indirectly controlled by Merkushkin's relatives, mainly his son, Alexander Nikolaevich. We weren't able to reach him, but we did get through to Irina Andriashkina. She is the niece of Nikolai Merkushkin's wife. According to official records, she owns the Eichelkovsky cheese factory, and she refused to comment on the waste situation.
I don't want to talk to your film crew.
The large and small factories and farms owned by the former governor are bringing Mordovia closer to an environmental disaster. Today, in Alatar, Insar, and Tatar Vanilii, water can only be used for technical purposes. And large-scale inspections by the Ministry of Forestry and Rosberg-Nadzer only confirm that agricultural enterprises with million-dollar turnovers aren't even trying to comply with environmental protection laws. And this is despite the fact that Insar, Alatar, and Tatar Vanilii are part of the Volga Basin, so everything that ends up there eventually reaches the Volga as well.
We need to look at the small rivers that flow into them. And of course, the aquifers bring in a large amount of pollution that isn't just background noise from Greemy. If it threatens people's health again, it can be stopped, the activity, right? Well, that's if it's truly dangerous.
At the same time, none of the company employees admit to any violations, even though these violations are obvious. Why are you showing me this worthless piece of paper? Show me the pipe, the pipe. Here's the pipe, here's the waste, here's the Insar River. We would have shown this to the employees and managers, not just on TV. But it seems like they already know everything perfectly well themselves, which is why they don't want to talk to our film crew. Don't touch me with your hands. Ivan Litiman, Natalia Maukina, and Tamerlan Ramanov. Izvestia, reporting exclusively for REN TV from the Republic of Mordovia.
Russian gymnasts are returning to international tournaments. This was announced by the Gymnastics Federation. It is already known that our athletes will take part in the 2025 World Cup stages in trampoline in Portugal, Germany, Bulgaria, and France. Russian gymnasts will also represent the country at the Trampoline World Championships in Madrid and the World Junior Championships. Preliminary applications have been submitted for the Challenger Cup, which will take place in Paris. In addition, Russian judges will be working at international competitions. They will evaluate performances in rhythmic and artistic gymnastics, sport aerobics, and acrobatics. 13-year-old Lisha from the Novosibirsk region also dreams of returning to sports. He was involved in powerlifting for several years, but had to stop training because of a serious illness. But the boy isn't giving up, and he's one step away from victory. Igor Baldin will tell us how we can help.
What do a piano etude and weightlifting have in common? Alexei always knew a healthy mind resides in a healthy body. Excelling in both, he won prizes at music school and medals for bench pressing. Add to that his achievements in intellectual games, checkers and chess and mathematics, and at the very least it becomes clear how much effort and love his parents put into raising him.
Lisha is kind. He would never hurt anyone. On the contrary, if there's ever a conflict somewhere, he tries to resolve it.
Qualities like the will to win, patience, and resilience have always helped Lisha reach the top, both in music and in sports. And those same qualities are helping him now as he faces a terrible challenge, the need to fight for his own life.
I came back from a competition. The next morning, my mom saw that I was swollen, and she thought I had kidney problems. The next day, she took me to the hospital. Then we were urgently sent to the city, and there, after some tests, they found out I had leukemia.
Lisha has blood cancer, a malfunction in his bone marrow. The disease attacks his lungs, liver, kidneys, muscles, and destroys his immune system.
Right now, his white blood cell count has gone up. We can allow ourselves a kiss on the cheek, right? Before this, we weren't allowed much. Both are wearing masks.
After the ICU and a course of high-dose chemo, Lisha is very weak. Now, even a simple walk is tough for the former weightlifter.
Sometimes he just doesn't have the strength to even get up. After the ICU, we had to learn how to walk all over again. Even now, there are moments when he might be walking and suddenly just collapse.
Chemotherapy is only a temporary solution. A bone marrow transplant is what will help beat the cancer. His mom will be the donor. The operation is free, but for the transplant to take, they need an expensive medication from abroad. The cost is more than 2.5 million rubles. That's way too much for an ordinary family from outside Novosibirsk.
Most children develop infections that are very hard to treat, and the children end up dying. That's why this antiviral medication, even though it's very expensive, is absolutely necessary.
Alexei is used to fighting and winning. He knows he will definitely recover. What's hardest for him right now is dealing with the isolation. Back home are his father, younger brother, friends, all that vibrant, active life he dreams of returning to as soon as possible.
I wish I could go to school with my classmates, hang out with them, go fishing, go swimming.
Lisha can't beat this terrible disease on his own. We can help him if we come together and raise the money needed for his treatment.
I plan to become an engineer, most likely, or maybe an architect. I like to draw, and I build things. I know my way around technology.
Right now, the life and health of this child, who keeps dreaming and making plans for the future no matter what he faces, depend in many ways on our involvement. Igor Baldin, Kristina Sokolovskaya, Izvestia, reporting especially for REN TV.
Let's help Lisha together. It's simple. Just point your smartphone camera at the QR code and follow the link. There, you'll see a help button. You can also send an SMS to 48 and indicate any amount in the text. Other ways to help and payment details are on our REN TV. Once again, thank you so much. The brig Rossiya reaches St. Petersburg. We'll show you everything soon. Today in St. Petersburg, there's a special atmosphere of scarlet sails, the beautiful celebration for Russian graduates. Last night, the brig Rossiya entered the city. In 2 weeks, it will become a symbol of new life for yesterday's students. Throughout these days, the crew will practice every element of the ceremonial passage. Natalia Oskurko boarded the sailing ship.
It appears on the Neva River at dawn and, of course, immediately draws everyone's attention. For the next 2 weeks, the brig Rossiya is the main star here. There are more than 2 weeks left until the celebration, but the brig is already fully prepared for it. Even the lighting equipment, which has increased even more this year. But the most exciting part is still ahead. Very soon, the main symbol of the celebration for all St. Petersburg graduates will unfurl its scarlet sails. The crew usually doesn't rush this part. 17 sails, covering almost 900 square meters, are quite temperamental, but they definitely impress even the crew.
You can hear everything clearly. The fireworks are right above us. So we're actually passing right through it under the bridges. Well, I have no words. It's really beautiful.
There's nothing fake on the brig Rossiya. It used to be a fishing trawler, which was rebuilt according to old shipbuilding traditions combined with modern technology. 50 meters long and more than 7.5 meters wide. Impressive dimensions for these waters. But the sailing ship maneuvers well, reaching a speed of 16 knots, which is about 30 kilometers per hour. At the key moment of the celebration, it's usually half that. If anyone thinks steering a ship like this is easy, just take a look at what the captain sees from the bridge. And that's even without the sails unfurled. That's why there's always a precisely planned route, instruments, and of course, the coordinated work of the crew, where everyone knows their job perfectly. This year, the sailing ship has a new route. It will start opposite the Senate embankment, pass through the raised span of the Palace Bridge, and gracefully turn around by the Hermitage. The course of the Brea Gracia is designed so that spectators can see all the beauty of St. Petersburg's historic center. All the best postcard views of the Neva River will become the highlight of the celebration.
We'll need to pay very close attention to the turn itself. We'll be turning in rather tight conditions. On the right, there will be the embankment. On the left, a pontoon field with pyrotechnics. In short, everything needs to be perfected.
And that's far from all the surprises in store for graduates and TV viewers. We've already seen spectacular illuminated oars and a blossoming flower on the bow of the sailing ship. What will happen this year is, as always, kept secret by the organizers, but there's no doubt it will be even more breathtaking.
It's so beautiful, and right now, it's something we all truly need. And most importantly, dreams come true and wishes are fulfilled. The main thing is to believe in it, to carry it with you, and to soak up this magical atmosphere. This ship sailing across the water. It's just impossible to look at it without tears. Tears of happiness.
Our goal is always to come up with something new or to mix things together, to combine different elements and create a new effect. That's it. And this year, I hope we'll surprise you again.
Scarlet Sails is a unique tradition of the Northern Capital, which was revived in 2005 with the support of Rossiya Joint Stock Bank, the government of St. Petersburg, and Channel 5. It's not just a celebration that has won all the key awards in the event industry and raises the bar every year. It is a symbol that unites generations, leading hundreds of thousands of people just as brave as Gray and as full of dreams as a girl named Asol. Natalia Ozkurka, Maria Smola, Alexei Kudryashov, Sofia Oganesian. Izvestia, especially for REN TV.
And that's all for now. For more information, visit our portal as RT, our U, or the website REN TV. See you on the air. One time, rock to the rhythm, roll to the bottom. Two times, everybody move your behind. Three times, rock to the rhythm, roll to the bottom. Good times, everybody move your behind. Twice, everybody behind, just as before. Twice, everyone shifts back, behind, strong. First, the event took place 2 steps up, during once and then again. At the two instances, it happened a third time, making for a total of 3 distinct overall.